Okay, so in the last video, we showed you the technical details about how to actually go and create the different sheets. In this one, I'm going to actually show you how to create a story and how to publish that to to either a PowerPoint or a PDF. I think you're going to need to upload a PDF actually um, in Wolfden. So let's see. I did one other thing. So I just wanted to show you real quickly. First off, it's a good idea to come to grips about kind of what you've learned from all of your analysis. And I just got to say, I opened up this data set about, I mean, literally, I've worked on this for as long as I've been on this, making these videos. I hadn't really given it a ton of thought. And so, um, but let's go ahead and just take a look at what we've learned so far. So far we've scattered writing and math scores. We found a positive correlation, which wasn't surprising, but we did find some differences between programs, and that's a little interesting. Okay, I found similarly that between gender, there might be some differences. Of course, we don't have statistical tests to tell us this. We talked about that, but we didn't get that far in the class. Um, so we can't really say if these, you can see that there are different slopes, see, between gender, but I can't really tell if those are statistically different, if those are statistically different slopes, or if those are just, those could be statistically indistinguishable from each other too. That's a possibility. So we don't really have that, but maybe there could be a case we see females that the correlation has, that there's a sort of a stronger positive relationship for females and males. We also see that there's a stronger positive relationship for academics. So it kind of goes to reason that there's a possibility that the reason why we have a stronger relationship in academics versus general and vocational could be by chance that more females might be actually enrolled in these purely academic programs versus general or vocational. And so that's a possibility. And that's something that you can actually go look for and test. And so maybe not test, but you can actually test it. But so what I did is I created actually another sheet that I didn't talk about in the last video, which was just program enrollment by gender. And so we could go through and create this again. It's real simple. I just basically clicked on program, I clicked on gender, brought it and created a chart, and then I dragged in the count of ID, and then went to analysis, and I showed it as a percentage of the column. That's what I have here. And so I see that there's 55% of females in academic, 53 in general, and 54 in vocation. It doesn't look to me when I look at this that these numbers, I mean, they're slightly higher in academic compared to general and vocational, but not that much. And I'm sure with a low count that we have, I mean, we can actually test if these are different from each other. We have those tools, but we don't need to go through all that with this exercise. Okay. With this exercise, I think we can just kind of look at it and say, look, there's not really a big difference in gender enrollments. So gender enrollment differences can't really explain this. They can't really explain why we have these differences between program types. I think that's what we can say. And what I've shown you is that we haven't found any real new knowledge. So we had what's called a non-finding. We didn't really find. We looked. We thought, could this be because of gender differences? We said, but actually no. It looks like when I look at the gender enrollment by program, it looks about the same. So it's really hard to think about gender differences, explaining why programs have a slightly different relationship between math and writing skills. Does that make sense? We found a non-finding, but even a non-finding in statistics is still a finding, and we can still report that as something we learned. So that's my extra little tiny tidbit. I dug a little deeper. But what I'm going to show you quickly is how to throw this into a story. So to create a story, go down and click on this little icon here, create a story. And let's start your story actually with your main finding. So the main finding, let's look at correlation of writing and math scores by program. And let's just add this in. So correlation of math and writing scores by program. Okay. And what we find, we're going to need to put a brief little description as to what we found. So let's go ahead and click on drag and add text. And so there is a positive I'm going to give an interpretation. There's a positive correlation between writing and math scores, and the relationship is stronger in pure academic programs relative to general and vocational programs. Okay, that's what we found. I gave an interpretation of this data. That's what I'm giving right here. Okay, so that's one little interpretation in our story. We need to add another layer, right? We need to present all the information here in the story. So how to do that? How to add more? You can sort of think of this story as sort of like a PowerPoint slide. This is like one slide of your story. How to add another slide? Well, new story point, blank. There we go. Add it in. Let's add the next one. Let's do the correlation of math and writing scores by gender. Okay, and let's just throw that in there. But actually, you know what? And I did this already. I wanted to create a little dashboard that shows the correlation of math and writing by gender, but also shows this program enrollment by gender down here. And I put these tabs into a dashboard already. So I already created this dashboard. We already did dashboarding, and now I'm going to throw the dashboard into the story. So let's go throw that dashboard too into our story. Okay, there we go. And let's go ahead and give it a little bit of an annotation. Drag this in, and let's write, there are also seem to be, I'm going to write seem to be because I haven't done a statistical test here, slight differences in the relationship between writing and math scores by gender. And I'll write but, all right, and so that explains this up here. I'll add another text box down. So program enrollment, but program enrollment by so actually program enrollment by gender. No, actually, I'm writing this in bad. I'm writing this in bad writing. So let's see. Yeah, actually, I could write that. Program enrollment by gender seems to be relatively stable between programs with roughly, I'll call it about the average 54% of students being female. So there's not much difference between, okay. And we can say that, so we can't really, so we'll put this over here. And I'll actually add another one. Actually, you know what? I can just keep going on with this. So therefore, the differences in between programs cannot readily be explained by gender. Differences to gender. I'll just leave it at that. That's fine. There we go. I gave an interpretation. Okay, I've learned a little something about this data set. I've told a little tiny story, and now I need to also satisfy your audience to show that you actually have sufficient data. And so we need to add another story point, and we're going to call this data sufficiency. And we'll just say, okay, data sufficiency. We created a dashboard to show sufficiency. Okay. And that should be fine right there. Okay, so we've done all these. We've done some different things in Tableau. We've shown a story to show that these correlations by gender. We show that we can't really explain the differences between the programs because of this gender. And we show we have some data sufficiency. I just want to say that, you know what, if it were me and I was like really trying to dig on this data set, I would have played with this data set a lot more than I did just in the last like little tiny bit. And I would have actually liked to look back at other types of measures. So for example, we could just really kind of play with the set and look at other types of relationships. So in other words, like math and science are going to be really strongly correlated. Okay, so again, I can kind of, you can really kind of explore. You should have already explored your data set. That really should have already happened. Not count ID. Measure count. No, actually, I need to remove this. I need to not do the measure. I need to do the dimension of ID in the detail. That's what I did wrong. That's really strongly correlated. Again, I could look at it by program. This is just like curiosity that kind of drives all this. A program on the color side, and let's look at the analytics, and let's do trend lines. Kind of similar idea here. You see a stronger relationship in academic versus others. That's kind of parroting almost like the same. The only thing that's different is we don't see much difference between vocational and general when it comes to math and sciences. That's kind of interesting, but we do see. So this is, see, I'm just exploring, and I'm just showing you, I'm finding out new things. So what I do see is I do still see that the academic programs have this stronger positive relationship, and it's weaker for general and vocational. But what I don't see is that there's almost like no difference between general and vocational when I look at math and science scores. That's interesting. But when I look at math and writing scores, there is a difference between general and vocational. It's actually more strongly correlated in vocational versus general. That's kind of interesting. I don't know what's going on here. So if I was really digging into trying to explore, I would hope that you wouldn't just. So what I've done here, and I just want to be clear, is I'm just kind of like throwing together some analysis on a data set that I just picked up here today, and I haven't really played with it at all. I haven't really done much with it. And I hope that you would end up doing a lot more than I'm doing here in terms of actually trying to explore your data set. Some of math. Let's look at math and say social science. That's interesting. Similar. Math. And we've already done all of these then. Okay. I wonder, what about science? Maybe social studies. Actually, that's kind of interesting. With social studies, we don't see really any differences between the slopes at all. Okay. What you see is that there's actually a difference in the levels. So the lines almost look like they're just shifted up, but they don't. The slopes look about the same. This interpretation means that the scores are just generally higher in academics, but the relationships between the scores is actually not so much different when I look at science versus, I think this is social studies. I think so. And this is also where I haven't really done much data work. I should do some more data work and actually describe the measure. I should be doing a better job of that. But this, again, is I pulled this together today. So you can really kind of dig around and try to figure out what is the data trying to tell you, and try to come up with some type of a story about the data. And so I've got some story here. Let's just go show you technically how to export this. Again, export as PowerPoint. Save this story, export PowerPoint. Let's go my drive. Actually, I'll just go this. How about we just go down to downloads? Okay, and let's just go story. Save it. And then when I can go open this actually in downloads. Let's go open it back up. And I've got it in PowerPoint. So in PowerPoint now, when I'm in PowerPoint, I can add all kinds of things. I can add a new slide, and I can tell something, actually say something. I should say something about this. So I should say, this is looking at test scores by gender and program. And I might write just a short paragraph about what I learned here. So I'll write generally. So I found. So I shouldn't say I. So there seem to be. Actually there is a positive correlation between various scores. Actually, I could in writing and math, and the relationship is different by gender and program type. And I say this relationship is different by gender and program type. It's a very general kind of statement here. I should be more specific and done more research, but I'm very light on my research here. Okay, so I should also say, so that kind of gives an overview of everything. That's good. I'll add another slide and I'll say data set. So this is a cross section of 200 students. I don't have much other information. I should have the metadata. This is where you would actually put the metadata about the data set itself in here. When I would talk about, so it's a cross section of 200 students that includes scores, math, science, social study scores, as well as program types, gender, and other variables. So there we go. I'm just really writing it generally. This is not a very great data set description. If you want to see a better data set description, go to Kaggle and look at their metadata. You want to just describe your data set a little bit. Okay, then I've got my story, which I've already kind of annotated, and that should be pretty much it. Okay, so I can take this, I'm going to write story. So this is my data story. Put your name, okay, and then go take this and save this as a PDF. Save as PDF. Okay, so save it as a PDF. Okay, you can do that from your PowerPoint. My computer's glitching out. We're gonna need to stop here. It's just like I've been having some memory issues on my computer, and it's not liking it. But that's pretty much the gist of it. I've really walked you through like A to Z, and showing you kind of like what I kind of expect you to go through. In general, I'll say that I just really do expect you to kind of tell some kind of a story using the data set and try to see what you can learn. The very first step is see what you can learn and play with it. The second step is then try to convince others. What I've failed at really doing here is I haven't really made a really great story about too much. I've kind of told a little story, but it's not really that strong. And part of that is part of that reason that it hasn't been so strong has been that I didn't spend a lot of time playing with it. And if I was going to look at this, I would say, that's okay. It's an okay story. It's not terribly great. Did I learn a lot? I learned a little bit. Okay, I learned a little bit. I could have probably done a little bit better. Just reflecting. I just wish I would have maybe had more time to play with this. I hadn't done that. Okay, um, and that's why playing with the data and just toying around with it and looking at the correlations and looking at all this and kind of trying to just tweak things. That's where that process becomes more important. Okay, so but in general, what I've shown you is at least the elements that you need uh, in order to submit this project. Okay, so that's kind of what you need at the very basis uh, to get going, and that's it. So create your PDF. I've walked through one from A to Z. I found my data set here today. I've done no playing with it. Hopefully your story is going to be stronger. Hopefully you got something that you've learned from the data that you have to share, and I hope that that's something that you guys all have. Um, anyway, that's it.